Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting of the Employment Committee. Welcome also to those accessing the meeting via the live stream to YouTube. During the live broadcast, members and officers are asked to please ensure that mobile phones are placed in silent mode. Only audio from the microphones will be captured on live stream, therefore please ensure they are switched on when speaking and switched off when you have finished speaking. Minutes will be produced in the usual way and a recording of the meeting will be available to view on YouTube until such time as the minutes are produced. I will begin with agenda item 1 and call upon Member Services report any apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no apologies to report.
Sorry, I'll bring apologies from Councillor Gowler.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2. Agenda item 2 is to confirm and sign the public minutes of the previous meeting of the 18th of July 2025 as being a correct record. Do I have a proposer to approve the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Davis. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Mfadden. Does any member have any comments to make on these minutes? Can I have a show of hands to approve the minutes? The public minutes of the 18th of July 2025 are agreed. Agenda item 3 is to report additional items for consideration which the Chairman deems urgent by virtue of special circumstances now to be specified. There are none. Agenda item 4 is to receive any declarations of interest under the local code of conduct or any interest under the code of conduct on planning matters in respect of any items to be discussed at this meeting. If you have anything to declare, please can you inform the meeting now? No hands are raised. Thank you. I shall now pass over to Sam Anthony, Head of HR, to present an overview of the forthcoming Employment Rights Bill report. She will also be able to provide responses to any specific questions that the committee might have. Sam.
Thank you, Chair. So this report for the Employment Committee provides with an overview of the forthcoming Employment Rights Bill, which is expected to become law later this year, although we don't actually have a date yet. But it will mean some important changes for employment law and likely to have a significant impact for all employers, including the Council. And the report is for note only. So I won't go through the report verbatim, but I'll just point out some of the highlights. So for this year, although it's still at the time of the report was writing and still not yet, we don't have a date that it's going to receive royal assent, but it's going to remove minimum service level rules for strikes, so that's strike action. It will increase dismissal protection for industrial action. It will look at trade union activity, so give the time needed of notice for an industrial action will reduce to 10 days from 14. It will simplify the majority rule for industrial action. Picket supervisors will no longer be required. Industrial action mandates will last for 12 months instead of 6 months, and the committee will recall that I think that was news last year with the junior doctor strikes. Industrial action and ballot notices will be simplified and political fund rules will change. So in short, the changes for this year are about strike action being easier, more simplified for the unions. Moving on to April next year, the changes are expected to be paternity leave and unpaid leave will become a day one right instead of having to achieve that right halfway through. And the restriction on taking paternity leave after shared parental leave is likely to be removed. There's also a proposal that statutory sick pay will be paid from the first day of illness. So that will be a burden for some employers, not necessarily for the Council, because we pay occupational sick pay from day one. So we'll be able to claim that back for the first 3 days, so a small financial incentive for the Council. And the lower earnings limit for statutory sick pay will be removed. There'll be a change to the Collective Redundancy Protective Award. So the failure to consult in a collective redundancy is expected to double from 90 days to 180 days, which is quite significant, particularly when you think about the likelihood of local government reform and how that might impact on redundancies in the future for the public sector. It's quite a significant change for local government. Also, whistleblowing protections for sexual harassment. So sexual harassment is likely to be expected to become a qualifying disclosure under whistleblowing legislation following the Employment Rights Bill. There'll also be an expectation that gender pay gaps and menopause action plans will become mandatory, voluntary from April, but mandatory from 2027. Now, we already have a mandatory requirement to provide a gender pay gap, but menopause action plans we don't. So that's another burden for the employer to forecast in. Again, more trade union changes, so simplifying how a trade union can gain recognition in a workplace, and allowing trade union members to vote electronically for ballots will again simplify and streamline strike ballot action. And also the Fair Work Agency. It's expected the Fair Work Agency will be established in April 2026 to bring together existing enforcement bodies and look at enforcement of other employment rights such as holiday pay and statutory sick pay. We don't know yet what the format of that will be, but that's going to be covered under the Employment Rights Bill. Towards the end of next year in October, still some government consultations to undertake on this, but dismissal and rehire is probably the biggest change. So the fire and rehire. So when an employer wishes to change contracts, they can dismiss and then re-engage on new terms and conditions. If the Employment Rights Bill goes ahead in its current format, that will become automatically unfair, which is quite a significant change for employers. A new duty for harassment, so harassment to prevent third parties, so that's customers and clients. So again, as a local authority, there's quite a significant burden for us to think about as an employer. We have to prevent that from any of our third party organisations. And employers will need to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment, and the current law is reasonable. So again, it's elevating the status of that particular element. There'll also be a change in the law around non-disclosure agreements, which doesn't necessarily affect the local authority, and tipping as well definitely doesn't affect the local authority, so we won't need a tipping policy. What will affect the local government is employment tribunal time limits. They're proposing that will increase from 3 to 6 months. So currently, once an employee has left an organisation, they have up to 3 months to make a claim to employment tribunal. Under the new Employment Rights Bill, they're going to extend that to 6 months. Again, more changes to trade union rules, a new duty for employers to inform workers of their right to join a trade union. We understand that that's writing to each new member of staff to tell them about it, as well as giving the contract on day one. Updated rules on trade unions' right of access in the workplace and the type of accommodation the employer has to provide for trade unions. And a new right for time off for union equality representatives. So currently there's a right for stewards and the branch secretary to have time off, and now there's equality coming under the Employment Rights Act. Increased protection against detriment for industrial action, and taking part in industrial action will be protected against detriment in the future. One of the other changes in October is the public sector outsourcing two-tier code. So this is where somebody is 2P'd across from a local government or a private sector. The two-tier code will protect people having different paying conditions under the same authority. So quite a significant cost potentially covered there. And the new adult social care negotiating body, not relevant for Fenland, but obviously it will be for the new unitary. In December, there'll be a mandatory seafarers charter, and we do have a port, so there will be some things we need to look at there. So public sector outsourcing two-tier code. So the new measures are expected for public sector outsourcing. So for example, if you recall, the last outsourcing exercise we took was outsourcing leisure. So Freedom Leisure took over our leisure function, which produced 2 tiers of pay. So anyone that's 2P'd over from the local authority had local authority pay conditions. Anyone that is employed by Freedom has different terms and conditions. This 2-tier code will eliminate that. So it's quite a complex process to undertake. So yes, the Seafarers Charter, we'll have to give a nod to that. And in 2027, although it's in the future, I suppose the headline one is the unfair dismissal day one right. The government are proposing that will be a day one right. You cannot be unfairly dismissed. Currently, you only get that protection after 2 years employment. There's much discussion in the House of Lords about this at the moment, So this one hasn't been determined, but there is some more consultation to be undertaken. There's also a proposal to increase pregnancy and maternity rights and introduce bereavement leave. You will have seen this in the news recently, particularly for miscarriages before a certain time. Also, some work on 0 hours contract. So 0 hours contracts, and we call them casuals, are likely to get the right to guaranteed working hours going forward under the Employment Rights Act. And compensation for cancelled shift links to 0 hours, where somebody comes in and agrees to work a shift, but that shift might get cancelled for whatever reason. There'd be compensation payment under the new legislation where there isn't currently. Flexible working, the Employment Rights Act will amend that, and an employer will not be able to refuse flexible working unless they state the reasons and explain why they believe their refusal is reasonable. Further enhancements to harassment, and I talked about the pay gap and menopause action plans will come to be mandatory then. Collective redundancies, some changes to that, and some 2027 trade union changes. And also some regulation of umbrella companies like agencies that employ people and provide them to local authorities and other employers. That's really it, Chairman. Happy to take questions. I just thought it was useful that the Employment Committee are aware of quite a significant change coming.
Thank you, Sam. Can I have a proposer for the report, please? Councillor Navas. And can I have a seconder for the report? Councillor Efadian. Thank you. This item is now open for debate.
It's loud enough without it. Yes, Chair, thank you. I mean, I do understand this is only to be noted, and there's not much we can do really influence any outcomes. But it's useful to have all this information. To be honest, I knew there was something about, but didn't have any of this information. So thank you, Sam, for that. There are some good changes, but I do have some reservations about some of the things. I mean, good changes, for example, about sexual harassment, given the percentage of female employees we have, not only in the council, but generally. And I know it's not always this way around. It can be the other way around, but the latter is very rare. So that is positive and very welcome. So is the gender pay gap closing. That's also good. But there are a number of others, setting up the unions and the strike regulations, which I did read around it a little bit. They're going to make things a bit more difficult for businesses to cope with and more expensive. And I'm not sure what long-term impact is going to be. I think it's going to be largely negative impact. But as I said, there's nothing we can do, and everything is noted. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? So, Councillor Vinnie.
Yeah, thank you. Question for Sam. You're in charge of HR. How many extra hours of work are you going to need in your department to manage this? I mean, if everyone was a good employee and everyone was a good employer, this is irrelevant. But it's always taken at worst case, and your worst employee could bring a lot of work to your office. How many hours extra work, or how many more employees do you think you need just to manage the proposed changes?
I think that's an excellent question. It's one that's difficult to answer. I think the reason that I'm bringing it to your attention now is because we are factoring that into our work programme now. So we will spread that work over the next 2 and a bit years. And some of these proposed changes might not actually come to fruition. Some of these won't impact us at all. Certainly with some of the trade unions changes, although we had trade union recognition, we work very effectively with our trade unions already. But some of them are quite significant. So we'll have to manage that as we go forward. I certainly won't be asking for any extra resource because of the financial situation the council's in. We'll have to manage that, I'm afraid.
Councillor Clark.
Similar question, can you put a cost on what this is. I mean, I know it would only be a guesstimate, but it's not going to be a plus, is it?
No, Councillor Clark, it would be impossible for me to put a cost on it. I mean, some of these changes are quite significant. You know, the unfair dismissal, day one right. As a team of management and HR, we need to make sure that absolutely everything is done right from the minute the individual joins the council. Whereas currently, most employers have that 2-year opportunity. So that there's things like that, and the hire and refire. If you want to change somebody's terms and conditions, for example, the demand that from the customers changes and you want to change somebody's contract, currently you can do the fire and rehire. You can alter their terms and re-engage them. That's going to be very difficult going forward. There's going to be a lot more time in negotiating changes to contracts. So it's really, to be honest, it's impossible for me to put a cost on that. Yes, it's going to cause more work. Yes, most definitely.
Councillor Davis?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is why we're just embarking on an updated management development programme for all our managers and aspiring managers, so we can pull the employment law aspects into it, so we can upskill those much earlier. But it's also, you know, the tribunal. So day one rights, but also a 6-month opportunity, a 6-month deadline for an individual to lay a claim at an employment tribunal. So yes, it is very difficult for the employer.
And there are some very clever people out there who will work the system. So. Not sexual harassment, but just general harassment, because obviously we have those issues too. What have we got to do during 26 to start getting ready for those changes? And can we?
Yes, we can do that work now. We have got a very robust policy that covers harassment. So it's a case of, as I said, management development, upskilling our managers, and making sure that we promote that with our management team, so they know what to spot. So it's getting ready for that. So we're doing a lot of that preliminary work now.
Councillor Winnie?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, this is being imposed on us by central government. There are a lot of dates within this as to where it is. With Angela Don't Pay Your Tax Rayner moving out of the cabinet last week, I was reading in the Daily Telegraph that this could all change again anyway, because the person who is going to take over could scrap most of this, if not all of it, and it may never come to any fruition. I personally don't think that will happen. But this is maybe over the top and strong legislation that's coming out of this government. They talk about growth and how they want businesses to work with them and grow, and they put millstones around businesses' neck like this. And truthfully, it is becoming the point where people will stop work. People will pack up. Employers will stop employing people. They will scale back. It is anti-business, a lot of this. This is going back to the 70s, and we only have to look at the rubbish that's building up in the streets of Birmingham to see where stroke action leads. And everybody suffers when the people go on strike. We've got the tube people, £72,000 a year they're being paid, and they're going on strike. The whole of London will grind to a halt, and that affects everybody. So it's one thing to bring these rules in and laws to safeguard people, which is fair. To be truthful, if I worked for the council, Sam, I would join a union so that I would be protected if ever you decided to get rid of me, and get the protection that a union brings. But it has to be within a framework that is workable for the employer as well, because without employers, you haven't got any employees. And I look at some of the extensions of time that people have. If you can't bring an unfair dismissal or constructive dismissal case within 3 months, that's 12 weeks. Even if you went on a cruise for a month, you'd still have time to sort that out when you come back. To increase that over this time, it is, some of these dates are looking to me to be far greater than they need to be. There needs to be a reasonable time for certainty for for business and also for the council, Sam. You're the person who's going to have to deal with these changes. And there's no tellings that whether in 26 we will have the same person in charge, and certainly in 27. So some of this may never come to fruition. And there are good parts in there, as Councillor Nawaz said, the sexual harassment, but that is already covered by law. How many laws do you need to protect against one particular crime, if you want to call it, or incident that comes out of this? We want to see where things work. I mean, I just see that there are changes coming here that probably won't affect the council because we are good employees as it is anyway. But the burden of work, for every 10 people you take on, you need to take another person on to manage those 10. And the cost of adding this and the time off for trade union representatives in paid working time, this is all adding cost. And we've got it. Things work as it is. Why fix what ain't broke?
Councillor Mifadian.
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to comment about the on the item 8.1, where it says unfair dismissal rights from day one. I think this is going to be incredibly difficult for employers, because if you think about it, you employ some people are going to abuse the system. I can see this happening already. I mean, I used to have staff this a few years ago now. People who would turn up, you employ them, and then it was a nursery school setting, so we had staff, and they would come in through the employment agencies, you employ them, and then you find out that they are not the best. They don't like children. They just came to the job because they wanted a job, because the benefits agencies push them towards you. Now, a situation like this, I think it's really unfair for the employer, because there used to be a probation period. What happens to probation periods when people get employed and you work their probation periods, and then you then decide whether they fit the system or whether you like them or whether they like you. I mean, professionally, of course. And then you get people in now, when this comes into law, from day one, someone comes into a workplace, misbehaves, and gets fired, then they can sue you for unfair dismissal. I think this is going to be a rigorous process for employers. You're going to have to, it's a bit like tenancy, you're going to have to ask for like all kinds of references, and you even have mental health records and things like that before you employ people. It's going to make it difficult for everyone, in my opinion.
I think that's a very good point. I think certainly with the unfair dismissal day one right, as I said, there's much discussion in the Lords and a lot of pushback about that. But that said, they are talking about some potential transition arrangements for probationary periods. But essentially what it means is if there's a problem, you will have to go through a full process. And currently in the council, we don't for those first 6 months, because we don't need to, because it streamlines the process. So yes, it will make it more difficult.
So, Councillor Davis.
I just have a question about basically the unions, because how will we respond to stronger union rights, and how can we ensure that the relationships don't turn adversarial more times than, because we've had a few, we don't really want too many.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. Our current union membership is around about 28%, so it's not a majority, and we work very closely with our unions. We meet them every month, so we have a very close and collaborative working relationship with the union. So I think it will be more of the same. And I think historically the strikes that we've seen in local government have been few, but they've been about pay recently and pension rights, and they haven't been particularly well patronised. So we have managed that quite well, but I think we need to keep a careful eye on how things progress to see how that unfolds, really.
And this is my final comment. I just wondered, A, this might not go ahead, we don't know. But secondly, I wonder if anyone's thought of the additional cost to the reconstruction to unitary trusts, who've now got to take on. We have people working 4-day weeks. We have people on different pay scales. That's going to be an absolute minefield trying to sort out for somebody.
Members, are there any further questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Benny.
The question is on 0 hours contracts. Labour have always been very, very down on 0 hours contracts, but they have their place in the workplace. And if you run a business that needs casual labour, you can't guarantee work every week. And there's also an awful lot of people out there who don't want regular work. There's an awful lot of people who only want to work when they want to work, or they pick it up as a second job. And these 0 hours contracts, as much as it's done maybe with the best intentions, it is also, it actually harms the very people who live on 0 hours contracts. It's good if you've got somebody in the council that's taking on the job of HR, your assistant Sam. You wouldn't want them on 0 hours contracts, but you have ebbs and flows in your workload, and therefore you need a flexible workforce to be efficient. And this isn't doing away with 0 hours, it's only giving them to people who want guaranteed hours. But the way around that is you guarantee them 2 hours a week, and then there's a way around most of these things. So you give them 2 hours a week, and if you wanted to be a bad employer, you could make those 2 hours at the opposite ends of the week, and you could make it so that they then leave. There are ways around. As much as you have employees that will play the system, there are employers who will also play the system. How many 0 hours contracts people does the council employ?
I wouldn't have the figures off the top of my head, but we do employ, I would think, in excess of about 30 casual contracts, 0 hours. And you're absolutely right, Councillor Benny, they have their place, they have a value, and those employees take them on knowing, that it's a 0 hours. It suits them and it suits the council. That's going to have to change. We will have to have minimum guaranteed hours.
A quick question. How many members belong to unions here? Or how many unions do we have?
So we recognise Unison. We also recognise the GMB. We have a 28% membership of Unison. We don't know about GMB because the unions have they're under no obligation to declare who their members are. So if they pay through their pay slip, we'll know, but they don't have to. They can pay separately. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the comments there as well. So I think as we recognise the report is to be noted. There's been some very interesting conversations there and observations. I do think that it looks like the Employment Committee will have a busy couple of years, and I expect each of these items to come to Employment Committee as they are implemented or discussed for implementation in there as well. So if there are no further speakers, therefore the recommendation asks that the Employment Committee note the report. All in favour? Thank you. The report is noted. So agenda item 7 is a proposal regarding the Council's Culture and Creativity Development Officer role. Members will note that it has been proposed that this report is exempt from publication in accordance with paragraphs 2, 3 and 4 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, in that it contains information relating to a specific job role within the District Council, which is likely to reveal the identity of an individual in addition to their specific salary. For this reason, it is considered in the public interest the information is maintained as exempt at this time. Is that agreed? Thank you. Thank you. As the whole report is exempt, member services, please can you end the link to YouTube?
Yeah, I have messaged him, so he should be on his way. Thanks, Phil. Yeah, I know. It's literally one. Yes, please. That's how I do it in planning. Thank you, we're no longer live.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right, I will now hand over